Which is better, the Moto G Fast or the Moto E 2020? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Hi everyone, this is Kevin here, coming at you with my comparison between the Moto G Fast and the Moto E 2020. These are two budget devices recently launched from Motorola, and they're both available factory unlocked. Now, to see the most up-to-date pricing for both of these phones, as I'm sure it will continue to go down over time, definitely take a look at the links in the video description. Now, I personally purchased these two phones with my own money, and I paid $199 for the Moto G Fast, and I paid $149 for the Moto E 2020. So a $50 difference between these two phones. Now, if you do happen to buy the factory unlocked variants of these two phones, then just know that they will work with all four major US carriers, including Sprint and Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile. So great carrier support with both phones, which is really fantastic to see. Now, the Moto G Fast features a 6.4-inch display compared to a slightly smaller 6.2-inch display with the Moto E. You can see side by side here, without a doubt, the Moto E 2020 does have the smaller display of the two. Another difference in the form factor here is that you can see up top with the Moto G Fast, we're getting a hole punch for the front-facing camera, and with the Moto E, we're getting a water drop notch. Then at the bottom of the two devices, we do have thicker bezels. Now, both displays here are IPS LCD. They're also both 720p in resolution. Now, with the Moto G Fast, we're getting a PPI of 268 compared to a PPI of 271 with the Moto E. Now, the G Fast features a 19.5:9 aspect ratio, and the E has a 19:9 aspect ratio. So a little bit of a taller, narrower design with the G Fast compared to the E, but still pretty similar in form factor overall. Now, with the G Fast, we're getting a screen-to-body ratio of 82%, compared to a 78.4% screen-to-body ratio with the E. Now, with the Moto G Fast, we're getting an 8-megapixel front-facing camera, and with the Moto E, we're getting a 5-megapixel front-facing camera. Now, both phones feature 32 gigabytes of internal storage. Neither of these two phones feature wireless charging. They do both have a fingerprint sensor on the back, though, so let me give that a try first with the Moto G Fast. So very nice and quick and responsive there with the Moto G Fast. Now we'll give the Moto E 2020 a try. And that was very fast as well. So nice to see that both phones do feature fingerprint sensors on the back. Unfortunately, neither of these two phones have face unlock, but it seems like many budget devices being launched in 2020 also lack that feature. So I think that's something that is being implemented Android-wide. Now, there are some major differences with the cameras on the back of these two phones. Now, the Moto G Fast features a triple camera setup with a 16 megapixel main camera. We have an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up photos. And the Moto E features just two cameras with a 13 megapixel main camera and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. Now, both devices do give us portrait mode with the rear and front cameras, which is very fantastic. So if you do like portrait mode, then just know that you are getting it with both phones. Now, the Moto G Fast has 3 gigabytes of RAM compared to the Moto E, which has 2 gigs of RAM. So we are getting one less gigabyte of RAM with the Moto E, which is a bit disappointing, but I suppose that at $50 cheaper, you do have to have some compromises. Now, the biggest difference between these two phones is the processor. Now, with the Moto G Fast, we're getting the Qualcomm Snapdragon 665 compared to the Qualcomm Snapdragon 632 with the Moto E 2020. Now, in general, both processors are very good. I'm certainly happy to see that both of these devices do have 600 series processors from Qualcomm despite their lower prices. I did run a benchmark test here with both phones, and you can see that the score with the Moto G Fast is certainly quite a bit higher at 162,720 compared to the Moto E 2020, which has a score of 119,123. And from my personal experience, the scores here do fairly represent the type of performance that you should expect with the phones. The G Fast really does give you great performance, especially at that $199 price point. Now with that said, the Moto E at $150 also gives you very impressive performance. So in general, I feel like Motorola gave both of these devices better processors than I'd expect at their price point. Now, in case you're curious, the Moto G Fast has the word fast in the name, not because it's the fastest phone out there ever, but considering the price tag of the phone, it is one of the fastest options available. So it's definitely a really good value. I don't know of too many other phones with the Snapdragon 665 at $199. Now, there are some differences when it comes to video recording with both devices. Now, with the Moto G Fast, video recording with the rear camera does max out at 4K, but there is no 4K recording with the Moto E. Instead, the Moto E is limited at 1080p. Now, you are limited though with the front-facing cameras on both phones. With the G Fast, we are getting a 4,000 milliamp hour internal battery, and with the E, we're getting a 3,500 milliamp hour internal battery. Both phones feature Android 10. They're both very stock-looking variants of Android with minimal bloatware. I did install a variety of my favorite apps on both phones that I have been testing out, but otherwise, neither of these two phones do feature bloatware. Now, if you do get them from a carrier, then your experience might be different. As you know, the carriers love to give you all kinds of added-on apps that I'm sure you don't even want, but I suppose that's one of the compromises with getting those really good deals from carriers. Now, neither of these two phones feature NFC, which is a bit of a disappointment. I really wish they did, but they do not. Now that we've gone over the specifications of these two devices, let's do a comparison of the hardware. Now, I already talked a lot about the front panel here. Definitely, without a doubt, the Moto G Fast does feature a more modern design, with having that hole punch for the front-facing camera and a better screen-to-body ratio overall. But the Moto E 2020 still is a nice-looking phone, and if you compare it to the way that the Moto E6 is designed, this is a huge improvement. Now, taking a look at the left side of both devices, you can see that the materials around the side band do look a bit different, but they are both plastic. With the Moto G Fast, it is a metallic finish here compared to a matte blue finish, and overall, I think both devices do look nice. Now, on the left side of both phones, we do have the slot for the microSD card and SIM card. Then taking a look at the right side of both devices, they both feature the volume button and power button, so a very similar form factor. Then taking a look at the top of both phones, they both feature a 3.5mm headphone jack, and they both have a noise-canceling microphone. Then taking a look at the bottom of the two phones, with both devices, we do have the speaker. They also both have a microphone, and with the Moto G Fast, we're getting USB-C, and with the Moto E 2020, we are getting micro USB. So a bit disappointing to see micro USB with the Moto E. That is certainly something that I wish handset makers would completely move away from. But I suppose at this price point, this phone has enough great things going for it that I can look past the fact that it does have micro USB. Now, taking a look at the back side of the two devices, definitely some big differences in the camera department, but I've already gone over that. They both have the fingerprint sensor, and definitely the material on the back looks a lot different as well. We're getting kind of a fancier, almost glass-looking appearance to the back of the Moto G Fast, but it is plastic. Both phones have plastic on the back. And with the Moto E, it's kind of a flat blue color, but it does feature a glossy finish on it. So I think both phones do look nice, but I also feel like the Moto G Fast does appear to be a bit more premium. But if you're using a case with either of these two phones, as I know many people tend to do, then I guess the material doesn't really matter too much. The good news though is that both phones are super solid. They don't feel cheap. That's another problem with last year's Moto E6. It just feels like a piece of junk. But that's not the case with the Moto E 2020, which is the replacement to this device. Let's now do a speed test comparison between these two devices. We're gonna first pull up the camera app. So 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like it's about a tie with both phones. We're now going to pull up Google Chrome. 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like the Moto G Fast is a little bit quicker, but not a whole lot quicker. Another thing I wanted to mention in this side-by-side here, you can see that with the Moto E 2020, the display is a bit darker. Now, that's because of two things. In general, the phone has a darker display, so it doesn't matter what angle you're looking at it with. It does have a darker display compared to the Moto G Fast. And I do have both phones at maximum brightness here, so don't say that I don't. But the other thing too is that the viewing angles are a bit better with the Moto G Fast in comparison. But with all that said, let's go to yahoo.com. By the way, both phones are on the same Wi-Fi network, so 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like the Moto G Fast is a little bit quicker compared to the Moto E 2020, but not too much quicker. Let's now go to Engadget.com. This is the first time this site has ever been pulled up on either of these two phones. So let's go to it right now. 1, 2, 3, go. And definitely in this test here, it looks like the Moto G Fast is the quicker one of the two. And we'll let the video load up. You can see the ad appeared first with the Moto G Fast as well. Scrolling is nice and smooth with both phones. So like I mentioned, with the Moto E 2020, it does have just 2 gigabytes of RAM. But you can see the performance here certainly is a lot better than any device that I've ever used with just 2 gigs of RAM. It really does a decent job here loading things up. And again, that credit goes to the processor. That's really the reason why the performance is pretty decent here with the Moto E, despite the low amount of RAM. But both phones have very good performance. Let's see, let's pull up another article. We'll go to this article right here. So 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like in this test, it was about a tie with both phones. Looks like the ad popped up at the same exact time as well. So in general, very nice, impressive, quick performance with these two phones, despite them both being very affordable. So in conclusion, which of these two devices is the better choice for you? Now, keep in mind that the price is certainly a factor that you might want to consider. There is a $50 difference in price between these two phones, and of course, if the price was exactly the same, then the Moto G Fast is certainly the better choice. But considering that if you do go with the Moto E 2020, you are going to save $50, so 25% cheaper, there are certainly quite a few compromises that you might want to consider. Now, if these aren't important to you, then go for it. But if there are certain features that the G Fast has that you can't get with the Moto E that you absolutely want, then go for the G Fast. The first difference is that the display is bigger with the Moto G Fast. So if you want a slightly larger display, go for the Fast. The cameras in all categories will be better with the Moto G Fast as well. You're also getting a better processor and 1 extra gigabyte of RAM with the G Fast as well. That's another nice bonus. You're also getting 4K video with the rear camera with the G Fast, which is another thing you can't get with the Moto E 2020. You're getting a bigger battery and you're getting USB-C. So those are really the benefits with the Moto G Fast compared to the Moto E. So if those things are important to you, then pay the extra $50 and get the Moto G Fast. But if those things are not important to you, then I think you'll definitely be happy with the Moto E 2020. So I hope this video kind of cleared up whether or not you should go for one phone or the other. Again, it really depends on what's important to you. If you don't think any of the bonuses with the Moto G Fast are worth it, then certainly save some money and go for the Moto E. But if you do value the various benefits with this phone, then go for the G Fast. But again, thanks for watching the video. Give it a thumbs up. Make sure to sub to the channel. Check out the links in the video description for the most up-to-date pricing, and I will see you in the next video.